Hey guys, it's Emily from Yahoo Esports, and today I am joined again by my compatriot Kelsey Moser, all the way from China.
No really enthusiastic wave this time, I guess.
I
I'm a
know.
bit disappointed.
I have to like mix it up. I feel like I should do something different every time. I'll have to think of something while we're talking. So today we're here to talk about the European LCS semifinals. So how about you go ahead and introduce the first matchup?
So the first matchup that is going to take place on Saturday is G2 versus Fnatic, and I think following the quarterfinals, a lot of people are a lot more interested and excited about this match, given the form that Fnatic was in. Given if Fnatic were to make semifinals, I would have been more excited about this matchup anyway than H2K versus G2, because I think there was always a better chance for Fnatic against G2 than H2K even before we saw the quarterfinals, and H2K were just like a completely disastrous mess. So I think this is going to be a really fun series in general, and it's the series of the two that I'm looking forward to the most. Of course, there's like the exciting storyline of G2 haven't really lost a playoffs series since they qualified for the LCS. G2 have been to MSI last year. They went to Worlds last year. You have like the Scandinavian Wonder Boy bot lanes, right? Like the Sven versus Reckless, very exciting. Like these two guys who are never really expected to be aggressive, who are like coming into their own. Sven is having a little bit more trouble this split in terms of with Mithy, and then like Reckless has really risen up. So this is really exciting. You have like these two pseudo rookies mids. Like Caps is actually a rookie this year. Perks was last year. So the matchups are really cool. The storylines are really cool. So this is just a fun series from that perspective. But looking at it even more, you have Fnatic suddenly playing like super aggressive, right? And super bot lane focused. And G2 publicly saying, we're going to slow down on the early game. After their last series with Fnatic, G2 said, okay, maybe we need to work on early game a little bit more again. So these types of setups are really interesting. So let me ask you right away, like, what are your first impressions on how this series is going to go?
I'm really curious about the bot lanes, actually, because I know we've talked about this extensively elsewhere, but you and I both picked Sven as kind of our like all-star, all-EU team AD carry. He's been doing really well, and then obviously Reckless was the star of Fnatic's victory. It was really unexpected. He was picking these champions, so not only the AD Kennen, which they've used before to split pressure, just because, as we've spoken about before, Fnatic are really great at splitting pressure on the map, but he was playing super aggressive on the likes of Twitch, on the likes of Vayne, really becoming this kind of side lane duelist, and it was really impressive to watch. So I'm definitely curious to see how the bot lanes match up. I also am curious to see if how much G2 has worked on their early game, because they have multiple times now pointed to this Fnatic series and then later on the Roccat series as something where they were like, okay, we obviously have holes in this that we need to address. And I think a lot of that is going to come from Trick, because I think they've kind of let Trick, and I like Trick, I think he's a really strong jungler, but I also think that his jungle style is one that does kind of rely on his lanes kind of sitting back, farming, while he's kind of just farming the jungle, and then joining up in skirmishes. So I'm curious to see if they try to change that at all going forward, because that's kind of the huge focal point for me. So if I'm looking at how G2 plays and I'm looking at, okay, how do they want to change up their early game maybe a little bit, it's by getting Trick more involved with his lanes a lot earlier than he usually does.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not even necessarily getting Trick involved with his lanes. It's the fact that I think G2 don't even seem to be aware of how mid jungle works all the time. They publicly said we have the best mid jungle duo, and I think you can maybe make the argument that Trick and Perks are like the best individual mid and jungler, even though I don't necessarily agree with that. But I don't think you can say that they're the best duo because I don't think their coordination is as strong. And by that I mean it's just like Trick kind of benefits maybe even passively from the fact that Perks will get push out advantages so often. And he'll do the same things kind of regardless of how his lanes are doing or not, which means like there are a lot of blind invades. There are a lot of situations where he'll go all in places where he isn't accounting for things like whether or not he can burst through the Shen TP, the Shen ultimate in time to get the gank off, whether or not he's paying attention to whether or not his mid has priority to join before the enemy mid if he's going to make a play down bot. And it's almost like he expects to just be able to beat the enemy jungler before other forces show up. And it's like a really interesting almost mentality. It's like, okay, if I get the full clear, I'll be stronger. I can make things happen sort of situation. Because when I have interviewed him, that's kind of been the way that it's come out. So I think that has a lot to do with why their early game seems more fragmented. The way Roccat generally beat G2 was through pushing out mid, and they tried the Nasus thing, which was like definitely... I mean, what people don't realize about the Nasus thing is that if you play it correctly, you cannot move Nasus out of lane. That guy will just clear forever. Like, he goes first back, he comes back, he just clears that lane forever, and you can't push back against him, and it's really annoying. Like, they didn't make that effective, really. And then in the second game, when they did get their first win against G2, they lost early, but what they did is they rotated Hjarnan, who was playing Sivir, they rotated him mid, and they had him, like, constantly push out the mid lane and constantly keep that control point, and then G2's ability to split the map in the mid game really faltered there. So I think that that's a situation where I have trouble seeing Fnatic win, even if they have, like, such a really good crushing early game. It's because I think Caps has been really inconsistent in terms of his ability to consistently execute strong matchups. Like, he'll pick maybe some matchups that are a bit niche, and he doesn't necessarily always get, like, the good trade at level 4 that he needs or something to make the matchup work. And then from there, you have a situation where I don't see, like, Reckless isn't going to sit mid and push for you. Reckless is going to be in the side lane doing the duels, things of that nature. So the known kind of formula for how to beat G2 isn't something that I see coming naturally to Fnatic. And that's kind of where I am a little bit hesitant to say that Fnatic can win, even though I kind of really want to, you know? Like, you really want to see this happen, but yeah.
I mean, in these matchups, I kind of always, it's probably not the best decision, but I kind of always err on the side of the team that has a little bit more consistency, just because I guess consistency is something that I generally value. So even though there are kind of these obvious weaknesses in G2's game, I feel like they have a strong enough communication system and they're aware of. So even if they don't like radicalize their early game or like make it like super powered or whatever, they have a really strong understanding of how their team works. Whereas Fnatic, I see as a team that suddenly figured stuff out as they're going through playoffs, or like towards the end of the split really, but then as they're going through playoffs, and then Reckless has this like breakout performance. Which I think like everyone should look at, because it was honestly like a really, really great, I don't even want to say like coming out party because he's been playing for forever, but like it was a great performance. I think people should go back and watch it.
It also has other connotations.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking of that, but like I think that I always err on the side of caution, and I think when faced with difficulty, G2 knows how to overcome it with the team that they have, because they've had to do it before. Whereas Fnatic, I think, even excluding kind of 1v1 matchup, Caps as a mid laner, he seeds, I mean, he's kind of, it's kind of weird to compare, but like Perks has become a lot more consistent than he previously was, whereas Caps is still kind of in that inconsistency zone where he doesn't always hold the mid as well as Fnatic needs him to have it be a really important control point on the map. So that's why I'm going with G2. I don't know if Fnatic will make me regret it again, because obviously this is another matchup that we were wrong about. We were expecting to see H2K rather than Fnatic, especially a Fnatic 3-0. So
I think one other point that maybe might go in Fnatic's favor is that, like, one thing that I complain about almost consistently with G2 is when they do rotate their bot from bot to top, they tend to leave Sven topside a little bit too long. And if they don't defend that vision well, they can get Sven can get collapsed on really easily. And a lot of EU teams haven't necessarily taken advantage of this. But I think it's something that Fnatic can definitely look at, especially since they were really good at juggling side lane pressure in this quarterfinal. Like, the fact that they constantly had top and bottom doing well meant that it was like really, really fun to watch, because you could see bot push out all the way, and then when they had the priority, like, they understood how much time they had for the priority to go from top back, right? Go to bot, use their bot lane as agents to, like, set up vision on the bot side, and then back and go back top. And it was, like, really, really cool to see them, like, carry off that timing really well and constantly keeping the swap, all the while not really losing farm because of it. So I think that kind of thing is really good. It shows that they have, like, a good understanding of getting vision control on that sides. The question is, like, will they be able to get those strong side lane matchups as well? Because even though Mithy hasn't been playing super well, I still don't rate Jess's, like, super high as, like, this god tier lane controlling support. And this matchup is still a lot stronger than the Nuclear Che matchup. So I think this is definitely a highlight to watch.
Well, and I mean, G2's bot lane, I think one thing we did see from H2K is that there's still that disconnect between the top side of the map and the bot side of the map. And G2 don't really have that problem anymore. Yep. They used to with Expect, but I mean, he's improved a lot. So I think that's another thing that Fnatic definitely capitalized on that they might not be able to against G2.
All right, so that leaves one more matchup that we want to talk about a little bit, since we spent a lot of time on G2 and Fnatic, and that's Misfits versus Unicorns of Love. This one is... I mean, this one's really interesting to still, because I think these teams are, like, kind of the Baron setup teams, like the group mid teams. We don't necessarily want to trade sides super effectively, but we want to team fight a lot. Unicorns of Love used to be good at 1-3-1-ing, and they have good communication between top and bot side, but then they just kind of said, you know what, we're really good at team fighting, and they sort of gave up. And I think that Misfits are in the same situation, except that they were never really good at 1-3-1. So, I mean, what do you think about this situation?
I really like UOL, and I guess it's kind of not contrary to what you said, but I really like UOL's mid jungle, actually. And I think that, I don't know, Kakao still has these games where he's, like, kind of weirdly disconnected from the team, I guess. And it's something that maybe I just noticed, and maybe I'm harping on him because I saw him do it all the time in China. But I think that UOL's mid-jungle duo is very strong. I think Exiles had a great split. And I think that Xerxes was, like, a really great fit for Unicorns and kind of what they wanted to do. So when I'm looking at this matchup, I'm kind of looking at how those two not only control the map, but kind of orchestrate UOL's skirmishes, especially when they like transition into mid to late game. I'm not sure what you thought about that, because, like, I guess I don't have as... I know Power of Evil has been putting up some really great numbers statistically, but I don't see that mid-jungle as strong as you're just like, no. I'm sure you're going to be a little bit more harsher, but, like, I just don't see that core of the team kind of, like, the central point of the map. I guess it's something I harp on a lot when I analyze teams. But I see UOL's mid jungle just so much stronger, which gives them a lot more advantages when they are trying to set up around objectives, especially Baron.
I think, yeah, so I am gonna take a little bit to go on the power of evil point, because I think a lot of people have been really high on him because of his damage numbers and things like this. But when you do talk about mid as a control point, I think the amount that UOL have gotten out of Exile, I'm not as high on Xerxes actually, but I think that's understandable since he's a rookie. So UOL get most of their map pressure, I think, this split off of their mid, and the fact that he understands roam priority a lot more. And I think both of these mid laners don't want to be in lane as much as some of the other mid laners we've mentioned. And so the difference is, though, that Exile will understand like how to roam without giving up his own advantage. Whereas I feel like Power of Evil will spend too much time on bot side or spend too much time on top side and then like fall really behind. So that can make a huge difference because he has been effective in these team fights, right? Like the damage numbers support that. Yeah. So that can be a really big difference for Misfits if he falls behind. So that's something that I am a little iffy on. Whereas I think that in Misfits' case, like Kakao needs to step up more and take initiative in the mid-jungle duo, whereas I feel like Exila is taking the initiative in the mid-jungle duo for UOL, and like it's not really coming through from Kakao. And we talked about Kakao a little bit last episode, so I'm not going to go too hard on him this time.
So who are you picking? I'm going with UOL just because I don't know.
Yeah. I think Unicorns is one. Like, Misfits is one thing that they're good at in the mid-late game, which is, like, vision control behind Baron. Unicorns just do it better. Like, Unicorns are the better Baron control team. Like, they're the best Baron control team in the EU LCS. So I think it's just really hard to... They will bait Misfits into fighting the mid, but Misfits will get baited into that anyway. So I think you beat UOL with 1-3-1, and Misfits don't do that. So that's about it.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, and tune in next time when we go through a few more playoff matchups. Thank you so much.